lokam strin akuto mityur udataha. And this verse says, the elder child, Hiranyaksha, was unafraid of death from anyone within the three worlds because he received a benediction from Lord Brahma. He was proud and puffed up due to this benediction and was able to bring all three planetary systems under his control. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. As will be revealed in later chapters, Hiranyaksha underwent severe austerity and penance to satisfy Brahma, and thus receive a benediction of immortality. Actually, it is impossible even for Lord Brahma to give anyone the benediction of becoming immortal. But indirectly, Hiranyakashipu received the benediction that no one within this material world would be able to kill him. In other words, because he originally came from the abode of Vaikuntha, he was not to be killed by anyone within this material world. The Lord desired to appear himself to kill him. One may be very proud of his material advancement in knowledge, but he cannot be immune to the four principles of material existence, namely birth, death, old age, and disease. It was the Lord's plan to teach people that even Hiranyakashipu, who was so powerful and strongly built, could not live more than his destined duration of life. One may become as strong and puffed up as Hiranyakashipu and bring under his control all the three worlds, but there is no possibility of continuing life eternally or keeping the conquered booty forever. So many emperors have ascended to power, and they are now lost in oblivion. That is the history of the world. Jai Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So this is a very nice report. Look up the name Ozymandias. Ozymandias. See if you can find that. So anyway, Hiranyakashipu says here was unafraid of death from anyone within the three worlds because he received a benediction from Lord Brahma. He was proud and puffed up due to the benediction and was able to bring all three planetary systems under his control. This is the problem of being puffed up. Basically, you think you're invincible. No one can strike you down. And then oftentimes people like that, they make fun of other people or torture other people. They think no one can stop them. They are God's gifts to humanity. This is a sign of falsely proud people. And they think that they can get away with anything. Did you find that?
I'm not finding anything in the history. So there is.
Huh?
No.
What do you have? Ozymandias.
A person once famous and respected who has since been utterly forgotten.
Read that again. A person who was once famous and
has since been utterly forgotten.
Utterly forgotten.
eternally forgotten. Yeah, see that's the history of the world. He was very famous, very powerful, and now it's completely forgotten. Yeah. So yeah, there's so many leaders and successful people in the past that were very powerful and everyone respected them, and now they're completely forgotten. But yet, Krishna is not forgotten, and the pure devotees are not forgotten. Acharya is not forgotten, but all the so-called big, powerful people who had so much money and wealth and power, they're all forgotten. Because they're all nonsense. They didn't really do anything good in this world. They just did selfish things for themselves. And so Ozymandias was one of those people.
Yeah, but it's from a poem.
Yeah.
Poem describes a traveler who tells the narrator about the vast ruined statue in the middle of a desolate desert. The
Right.
statue is of once great king Ozymandias. The face of the statue, though shattered and lying in the sand, still bears a proud, sneering expression. Nearby, the traveler reads the inscription on the pedestal. My name is Ozymandias, king of the kings. Look at my works, ye mighty and despair. However, the works referred to are nowhere to be seen. They have long since crumbled and disappeared, leaving only the broken statue amidst the empty sands. The poem concludes by emphasizing the stark contrast between King's arrogant proclamation and the current state of decay and oblivion that surrounds his monument. So the essential theme is the poem highlights the transitory nature of human achievements and the inevitable decline of all empires and legacies. Ozymandias' pride and belief in his own greatness are evident in the inscription, yet the desolate scene illustrates the futility of such arrogance. The relentless passage of time erodes all human endeavors, leaving only remnants and ruins.
Haribol.
Ozymandias serves as a timeless reminder of the ephemerality of human achievements and the inexorable passage of time.
Yes.
I got the actual poem. I met a traveler from an antique land. I met a traveler from an antique land who said, two vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. Near them on the sand, half sunk, a shattered visage lies, whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of gold command tell that its sculpture will that passions read which yet survive. Stamped on these lifeless things, the hand that mocked them, and the heart that fed. And on the pedestal these words appear. My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my words. Look on my works, ye mighty and despair. Nothing beside remains. Round the decay of the colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away.
Yeah, in other words, I'm not sure if Ozymandias actually existed, but this is a poem by the
Percy by Shelley.
Shelley.
Yeah,
Shelley.
Yeah.
by Shelley.
Yeah, he's an Englishman and he's a great poet. So he writes about this Ozymandias, who's a great, powerful, you know, person, and he's describing how he's now his remnants are in the desert, and his you know the his so-called his uh, remembrance is more or less forgotten, and there's only like a broken what do you call it, a broken effigy of him in the desert, and he was supposed to be a very very great person, a powerful person, So in other words, all these great powerful persons, they end up completely forgotten in history, and it just shows the ephemeral nature of the human body and and so-called human achievements. Uh, there have been so many, Ozymandias in the past, and more or less they're all forgotten today. On the other hand, there are some people like Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who has not been forgotten. And Jesus, in a sense, has not been forgotten. But there's one issue about Jesus, that is, whatever or whoever is born will eventually uh, be forgotten or lost in history. Uh, so that's the what's being said here, that this Ozymandias was such a powerful person, but today he's forgotten completely. And the only remains are the broken shrines of him in the desert. So uh, all these very powerful people who were more interested in exploiting people rather than helping people, and were puffed up and so forth. They always end up, with a broken shrine that's rotting somewhere, and they're completely forgotten. Like, for example, you have, if you go to uh, the library in Bellevue, outside you'll see a statue of Gandhi. Have you seen that? Yeah. And he's outside. It's outside, so the birds can pass stool on it. And once a year, you know, people some people come to have a ghee wick and a lamp or something. They'll do a little bit of puja. You know, I don't even think they wash the bird the bird's stool that's on the statue, and they chant, with that one uh, song that Gandhi liked very much, and they talk a little bit about him, and that's it. He's just standing there in that statue. And then, as time goes on, everything deteriorates, of course. And eventually, the hand won't be there or the head won't be there, but, the body is there. And you're trying to look around, and there's some little inscription. Here stands Gandhi, the great personality, So there's so many statues like that in the world of great, great people. And basically, they're just being disintegrated over time and forgotten. So the ephemerality, that's a good word, ephemerality, right? It means that nothing is going to live forever. No one's going to live forever, and everything is going to change over time. And the only thing that can is immune to change over time is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Uh, Krishna was present 5,000 years ago, right? And he's just as present today, you know. Uh, so, is there any other person in history like Ozymandias? Ozymandias, of course, is a made-up name by Shelley. He was a British poet, a very good poet. But what he's trying to say is, look, all these big guys in the past that were conquerors and very famous, over time, they're just forgotten, and you just have like broken statues that are remnants of their presence today, and it just shows that all the accomplishments that they made were actually not so important. You know. What's more important is one become a genuine devotee of Krishna and have a life of Krishna consciousness, and then go back to Godhead. But if you're some big, let's say, emperor, and you fought many wars and conquered so much land and people, but over time you're going to be forgotten. You know? So there is Jesus. He was present 2,000 years ago. People are still talking about him, although he wasn't a big, conqueror of lands and countries and things like that. But he was this, let's say, the son of God, or one of the sons of God. He's not the only son. We're all sons of God. You know. But he became famous because he died on the cross, uh, being completely faithful to God. Actually, right before he died, he said, "Oh my Lord, why are you letting this happen to me?" You know. So all of a sudden, it was like maybe he was regretting the whole thing, but actually he didn't. You know. And then after that, he says, "Well, that's all right. This is your will, so I will submit myself to your will." So he was crucified. He was put on a cross, a big wooden cross, and he was nailed to it. You know, the nails were on his hands and his feet, and he was just stuck like that until he left his body. And also, he was injured in his I think his left abdomen, and was poked by the spears of the Roman, uh, like Roman soldiers, and they mocked him. You know, he was supposed to be the um, the God of God, not the God of God. And it's supposed to be what?
The Son of God.
The Son of God. Yeah. So they mocked him. They gave him a crown of splinters or thorns, and they forced him to carry this cross, which was very heavy, on which he was going to be crucified. Crucified means they plant the cross, somewhere, and then they nail him to the cross, and then put it up and make sure the cross doesn't fall down. And he has to stay like that until he dies. It's extremely painful, extremely painful. And even when he was on the cross and he was suffering, he called out to his God, and God, it's, why is this happening to me? Why did you let this happen? And then after that, he calmed down and said that I will follow, I'll do whatever you want me to do, more or less. So, but see, there were many famous people in the time of Jesus, but they've all been forgotten. But Jesus is still talked about today. And then people, let's say, worship him as the Son of God. So we see that sometimes, uh, great personalities like Jesus are crucified, but they're never forgotten because they are, you know, uh, like you would say, Shaktavish avatars. Well, look that up. That's Shaktavish. There are different types of avatars. Some are ordinary human beings who have received the Shakti by Krishna to do, uh, you know, uh, a specific thing. Like in the case of Jesus, he was able to preach, and his words are in the New Testament of the Bible. So he had that Shakti. What does it say? Shaktavish avatar.
It's the power embodied avatar, incarnation of a deity in the Vaishnava tradition of Hindus. The concept refers to living beings who were empowered by a deity towards the performance of certain acts or the achievement of a given mission. A portion of the potencies of a deity is believed to be present avesha within a Shaktyavesha avatar, invested with divine power. Vyasa, the four Kumars, Nagara, Sesha, and Brahma are generally regarded to be the Shaktyavesha avatars of Vishnu or Krishna in Vaishnavism.
Mm.
In ISKCON Desire Tree Maharaj, it is said as Shaktavesha avatars means empowered incarnations.
Mhm.
There is no limit to the number of Shaktavesha incarnations, but some are mentioned in the Vedic literatures as examples. They are of two kinds, direct and indirect. When the Lord himself expands, displaying a particular power of his opulences, he is known as Shakta. When he empowered the living entity with some particular Shakti power for some specific activity to represent him, that living entity is called indirect or Avesha incarnation. Avesha incarnations include four Kumaras empowered with knowledge, Narada empowered with devotional service, Brahma empowered with creative power, King Prithu empowered with power to maintain living entities, Parasurama empowered with power to kill evil elements, Vedavyas to compile the Vedas.
Yeah. So they're ordinary human beings who have received a specific Shakti. So Vedavyas has the Shakti of literary production. He wrote so many Puranas and so many literatures, spiritual literatures. But that's because he was empowered to do it. So sometimes Krishna does empower certain individuals, and they do extraordinary things that it's difficult to even think of what they've done so great. So one example is Vedavyas. He wrote so many scriptures, and they're still valid and they're still being read. So Shakti means power, and Shaktavisavatar is a ordinary human being that's been blessed with a particular power. So it can be for literary production, like in the case of Vedavyas. Okay, so
Jesus was
what?
Jesus is considered as Shaktavish.
Yes, yeah. Okay, so in other words, it's an ordinary person, but they've received its power from Krishna and able to do, wonderful things that ordinary people can't do. So whenever you see someone like that, I mean, you recognize by what they're able to accomplish. Now, for example, Stalin, he's not a Shaktavasha, but he did a lot of big things, right? But he's not a Shaktavasha because whatever he did was actually destructive. The Shaktavasha are pure devotees, Lord.
They are empowered for some specific activity to represent Lord.
Yes, yes. Okay, so are we on 19 or 20?
19.
19, okay. So text 19, Canto 3, chapter 17, text 19. The elder child, Hiranyakashipu, was unafraid of death from anyone within the three worlds because he received a benediction from Lord Brahma. He was proud and puffed up due to his benediction and was able to bring all three planetary systems under his control. So he's a really big demon. He's basically controlled the whole universe. And he was not afraid of death because he had received a benediction not to be immortal, but because Brahma told him, "Look, I'm not immortal, so I can't give you immortality. But you can ask other things from me, like you can't be killed during the day or at night. You can't be killed by any weapon. You can't be killed by any devata and so forth." So he received all of these so-called benedictions, and then he thought he was immortal, that he would never be killed. Of course, he never realized that there's something called the incarnation of the Lord as Nrsingadev, half man, half lion. And so all the things, all the benedictions that he receives were not violated by Lord Nrsingadev when he killed the demon Hiranyakashipu. Right? So it's unimaginable. So oftentimes Krishna, he gives knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. So oftentimes people get benedictions, but and right away they think they're immortal, but there was something forgotten, in the benediction. So whenever and actually, this is what Krishna does. He scrambles the mind of the demons, and they make mistakes. Just like Hitler. Hitler was very successful in the beginning. He conquered France very quickly, and France was a very powerful country. And the Netherlands also, and other places. And then he tried. Then tried to invade England, but of course, England is an island, so it was a little more difficult. But before he was able to subjugate England, he decided to invade Russia. That was a huge mistake, and because of that, he was defeated. Now, why did he do that? Well, because Krishna gave him forgetfulness, and he started to make mistakes. So that's what usually happens to the demons. For some time, they're very, very powerful and successful, but then Krishna can scramble their brain and they can make mistakes. And because of that, they are defeated. So, therefore, God can give you knowledge, power, knowledge, but he can also give you forgetfulness. Okay? So therefore, Prabhupada said his only prayer to Krishna was, "My dear Lord, please don't let me fall into Maya." Right? Maya means the potency of forgetting God, forgetting your relationship with God. So therefore, Prabhupada was always Krishna conscious, always thinking of Krishna, always praying to Krishna. And because of that, he didn't make mistakes because he was always Krishna conscious. But when someone begins to misuse their power, then Krishna can give them forgetfulness, and they start making big mistakes, and eventually they're defeated, like Hitler and the Roman Empire. There's so many big empires in the past that failed over time, and because they were making mistakes. The Romans, it's very interesting what the Romans were doing. Today you can go to Rome and you'll see the Colosseum. Look at it. The Colosseum was this big, sort of like a football field, but it wasn't for football. And for entertainment, see, like when people want to have entertainment, they go to a movie. They go to some movie house and watch, people getting killed and so forth. Of course, it's not real. One day there was this man watching this movie and on a big screen, in the movie house, and he saw some woman being choked to death, right? And he thought it was actually real. So he walked up on the stage and went to the screen, and sort of touched it, and looked at it. Then he realized there was no woman being, choked to death. It was just a screen, right? And black and white dots, because it went very close to look at it, and but it looked so real when he was sitting down, like 10, 15 feet away from the screen. It looked so real to him. He actually thought there was a woman being choked to death. So these things they happen. Uh, so our ability to see things correctly can be, let's say, changed by the will of the Lord. So when these demons come and they're making big plans and they're invading countries and subjugating them and killing people and things like that, well, at a certain point, Krishna makes them forgetful of things, and then they fail, and then they lose everything that they did. So that Hitler would be an example of that. He was very successful for about, I would say, 12 or 13 years, right? And then he was crushed, lost everything. And the German people, they loved him, in the 1930s. You could see these movies of, real, not movies, but real uh, uh, pictures and film made of the German people and the big number of followers of Hitler. If he won World War II, he would be worshipped. He would have been worshipped as God. That's how close he came to becoming such a famous person. But of course, he made some mistakes. His mistake was trying to subjugate Russia, and before he finished subjugating England, right? And then he lost 1 million soldiers in Russia, and it wasn't because they were shot by guns or cannons. It was the Russian winter that killed them. They went. They invaded Russia, in the summertime, but Russia's a big country, and the Russians, they at that battle with Hitler, 20 million Russian men died. They were killed. But what happened was the Nazis were not able to subjugate them. They tried, but Stalin kept throwing more soldiers, more soldiers, more soldiers to stop them, and of course, 20 million Russian men died. But it slowed down the conquering of Russia, and then the Russian winter came, and then Hitler lost 1 million men, basically because of the Russian winter, which was very severe. Right? The Russians were not prepared for fighting, and their tanks and everything. They were not prepared to deal with severe weather. Yeah. So you see how people can make mistakes. At first, they think they're going to be completely successful, and they miscalculate. They don't take into account, weather conditions and so many other, variables, and then they get defeated. Okay. All right. So here Prabhupada's saying in the purport, one may be very proud of his material advancement and knowledge, but he cannot be immune to the four principles of material existence, namely birth, death, old age, and disease. It was the Lord's plan to teach people that even Hiranyakashipu, who was so powerful and strongly built, could not live more than his destined duration of life. One may become as strong and puffed up as Hiranyakashipu and bring under his control all the three worlds, but there is no possibility of continuing life eternally or keeping the conquered booty forever. Booty means everything that you have,
Right.
everything you have conquered, right? So many emperors have ascended to power and they are now lost in oblivion. That is the history of the world. Okay, so that's basically the poem by Shelley, right? Of Ozymandias. Here stands, he's saying that there's this broken down shrine for someone named Ozymandias, that, and it says, here stands Ozymandias, the conqueror and emperor of the world, right?
King of the king.
King of the kings, but actually, completely forgotten. And his statue is in the middle of the desert somewhere, and it's broken also. So, in the same way, there have been many big empires. The Mughal Empire, and this empire, and that big empire, and now there's yeah. We used to joke about the Alexander the Grape, and they're all finished. They were so powerful, and they're all finished. The Roman Empire, this empire, that empire, they're all finished. Mughal Empire. So, but Krishna consciousness is not finished. And say, Krishna consciousness was there in the beginning of time, and it's there today also, because it's not a material thing, it's spiritual. You cannot kill something that's spiritual. You can only kill things that are material. You can't kill something that's spiritual. So somehow or other, it continues to exist in all periods of time. The Krishna consciousness was present in the beginning of the world and is present today also, and will be present, eternally, because it's the will of Krishna. Okay, so one may be very proud of his material advancements and knowledge, but he cannot be immune to the four principles of material existence, namely birth, death, old age, and disease. It was the Lord's plan to teach people that even Hiranyakashipu, who was so powerful and strongly built, could not live more than his destined duration of life. One may become as strong and puffed up as Hiranyakashipu and bring about his control bring under his control all the three worlds, but there's no possibility of continuing life eternally or keeping the conquered booty forever. So many emperors have ascended to power and they are now lost in oblivion. That is the history of the world. So one day we were on a morning walk with Srila Prabhupada in Paris, and we went to the Place de la Concorde. And from the Place de la Concorde, you could see a lot of things. It's like, the Place de la Concorde. No, we were at the museum. I forget the name of it, but it's on a very high hill. And then you can see, you have a panoramic view of Paris from that hill. And in the distance, Prabhupada saw there was this very nice building. And he asked the devotee, he says, what is that building? It was a little bit far away, but you could see it because we're on a very high hill in Paris. And one devotee said, well, he said, that's the hospital that who was it? It was a hospital that was built by Napoleon for the soldiers that were being injured in his conquering of countries, and especially when he sent his soldiers to conquer Russia. So Prabhupada looked at it and he said, the hospital is there, but Napoleon is not there. Meaning he builds this fantastic hospital, right? Very classy building, and it's big.
Hospital day.
Huh?
Invalids.
Invalides,
Invalid.
yeah. And that means that for sick people, invalid. And he says the hospital there, but Napoleon's not there. So you see, all these big. By the way, if you go to Paris today, you'll be able to visit this Invalides, the hospital that he built. But he's not there. So it just shows that everything is ephemeral. Everything is going to be subject to time. And even the greatest emperors, they're also going to die.
So apparently it was built by Louis the 16th, but it just happened to be next to Napoleon's tomb. So that's why people think it is built by Napoleon.
Ah, okay. Is that what that says?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyways, it was a big hospital, and it's still there, but Napoleon is not there. So that's what it means. It means that everything in the material world is going to be subject to time, and even the greatest emperors and greatest conquerors, they're all going to die and eventually be forgotten. So therefore, we should take that as examples that no matter how powerful these people were, and if you look at Hiranyakashipu, he conquered the whole universe. He was extremely powerful, right? But he was defeated also, because he became very puffed up, and he tried to kill Prahlad Maharaj. So, and Krishna took care of him. He said to Prahlad, "Where's your God?" Because he tried to kill Prahlad, who was his own son. He tried to kill him, and by doing different things, throwing him in the ocean where there were a lot of sharks, and throwing him off a cliff, and so many things he did to kill Prahlad. And then finally, he had his wife make some food and put poison in it and gave it to Prahlad. And Prahlad, of course, was a devotee, so he offered it first to Krishna, and then he ate it, and he didn't die. So finally, Hiranyakashipu became convinced that, well, Prahlad's some kind of mystical yogi. I don't know how it happened. He's a mystical yogi, and he tried everything to kill him. He couldn't, and he said, well, maybe let me kill his god, then then he'll lose his power. And he said to Prahlad, where is your god? So Prahlad said, well, he's everywhere. He said, well, is he right here? And he pointed to a column, and there were like 100 columns, he pointed to one and said, is he here? Prahlad said, yes. So he took his sword and smashed the column, and out comes this incredible creature called the Nrsimhadev. It's half lion, half man, and kills Prahlad's father, Hiranyakashipu. and he's roaring like a lion. The whole world was shaking because of the vibration of his roaring, and the everyone was afraid. And then they asked him, "You go and put this garland on his neck, and maybe he'll calm down." So Prahlad was not afraid, so he went up to Nrsingadev and garlanded him, and then Nrsingadev finally calmed down, and he said, "Prahlad, you're a very, very dear devotee of mine." He said, "Ask any benediction that you want, I'll give to you." And Prahlad said, "No, no, don't try and entice me. I'm happy. I know how to chant Hare Krishna. I'm very happy." He said, "No, it takes some benediction." Okay, he said, "If you want to give me a benediction to bring my father back and purify him, bless him." And then the Shingadev said, "No, no, don't worry about him. He's okay now because of you becoming a pure devotee. Like, what is it? 21 generations of your family have been liberated." You know? So if you really love your ancestors and your present family and your ancestors, you should become a pure devotee, because if you become a pure devotee, 21 generations of your family are going to be liberated. That means you really love your ancestors. You see. And therefore, you don't have to do anything other than just becoming a pure devotee, always chanting Hare Krishna and following all the rules and regulations of Krishna consciousness and preaching Krishna consciousness, and you'll be helping thousands of your relatives, the ones you know and the ones you don't know. Right? Okay, so are there any questions about this verse? Yes.
When Kashyapa Muni and Diti uh, uh, they did something wrong,
Yes.
it was the Lord's plan. So is it still their fault, or is it like it's not anybody's fault because it was the Lord's plan? Like, I don't understand that. Because if it's because the Lord's plan was to both um what Lord, it has to be Lord's plan, right? Like everything is the Lord's plan. So is it Diti's fault, or is it is it Diti and Kashyapa Muni's fault, or is it like
Okay.
nobody's fault because it's the Lord's plan?
Well, there's different ways of looking at it. The Lord has a plan. Okay. So he can put people in remembrance or in forgetfulness uh, to execute his plan. Like, for example, it was the Lord's plan that at one point Arjuna refused to fight, threw down his bow and arrow and said, I can't do this. So then that, let's say, triggered the discussion between Arjuna and Krishna. And today, we're able to hear that discussion. It's called the Bhagavad Gita, right? So that was the Lord's plan, right? So if there was no Arjuna who refused to fight, there wouldn't be any Bhagavad Gita. So now, how do we recognize the Lord's plan? Well, we have to be patient. And Phalena Parichyate, this is a Sanskrit phrase. It means you understand by patience, and 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 over time you'll understand what happens. Right? You shouldn't jump to conclusions right away. But Phalena Parichyate, ultimately the Lord's plan will be revealed. So the Lord's plan for Hitler was that, when he was so successful in conquering France and other countries in Europe. But when he tried to conquer Russia, he was defeated and he lost everything. So that was part of the Lord's plan. Why did? By the way, he made a peace treaty with Russia, with Stalin, and in that treaty it said that we won't try and invade your country, and you don't try and invade our country, right? So Stalin signed that treaty. That means they were not going to go to war with each other. And then Stalin, Hitler breaks that rule or that plan and tries to conquer Russia, and he got defeated. He lost everything. You see. So, and why did he do that? Well, Krishna scrambled his brain and gave him forgetfulness. He forgot that he signed a treaty with Stalin. And why did he do that? Usually the people that write history say, well, Hitler didn't trust Stalin, and he thought that Stalin would, in a moment of weakness of Hitler, he would invade Germany, right? Of course, we don't know if Stalin was planning to do that, right? But you see how people can make mistakes, and then those mistakes become catastrophic, as in the case of Hitler thinking, well, if I don't invade Russia, they're going to invade us. So I better do what's called preemptive strike. Like, for example, the United States, up until a certain time, had never done a preemptive strike on a other country. Preemptive strike means some other country doesn't do anything, but you think they're going to do it, so you invade them. So the United States never did that for a long, long time. But it did do that in the case of, what was it?
Iraq.
Huh?
Iraq.
What?
Iraq.
Yeah, Iraq. Iraq was not at war with the United States, right? But for the first time in the history of the United States, it did a preemptive strike against Iraq, and it ended up being a disaster. Why don't you look that up? Preemptive strike.
So here are some of the reasons why Hitler attacked the Soviet Union.
Okay.
There was that fact, but then Hitler had ideological conflict. So Hitler viewed communism as a major ideology. Communism. The next is resources. Soviet Union was rich in natural resources. So he was, he wanted that. Third is strategic miscalculation. Hitler underestimated Soviet Union's military capabilities and believed that a swift, decisive victory was possible. And then military overconfidence, buoyed by the rapid successes in Western Europe, he thought that they could easily defeat. And then,
it's called Blitzkrieg. You can look that up, Blitzkrieg.
And then finally, the underlying desire is the expansionism, but finding his
power. Yeah, the Germans use this strategy of Blitzkrieg. Invading a country with overwhelming power and conquering it in a matter of weeks. And it worked for France. France was a very powerful country, but it collapsed, because of the overwhelming power of the Nazis. So Hitler thought his Blitzkrieg would work in Russia, but Russia was different than France. It's much, much bigger than France. And what killed the Nazis was the Russian winter. So what does it say?
Says Maharaj, Blitzkrieg, a German word meaning lightning war.
Lightning war.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was Germany's strategy to avoid a long war in the first phase of World War II in Europe? Germany's strategy was to defeat its opponents in a series of short campaigns.
So it worked in France and Holland and those countries, but when he tried to do it to Russia, it failed. Right.
It also says, Maharaj, the shock value of the initial blitzkrieg was dissipated by the vast distances, logistical difficulties, and Soviet troop numbers.
Yeah, Russia's a big country. It's not a small
We didn't
country.
work with
Yeah. See, he should have used another strategy, right? But the one he chose to do, what worked for France and these smaller countries, you know, it was successful. But it's just like, you know, okay, I'll give you an example. It's just like a snake that tries to swallow a buffalo, right? So it can get its mouth around, you know, the hoofs of the buffalo or something, but it can't swallow the whole buffalo, right? And eventually it chokes and dies. Yeah. So Hitler made a mistake, you know, a tactical mistake.
So even Russia assumed that when it attacked Ukraine this time,
They also made a
they
mistake.
also thought that, you know,
yeah.
it will be like overnight or like within a weekend kind of war.
Yeah, well, it's and those mistakes are very, let's say, uh, very, what's the right word? Well, let's see. Let's look at what has happened to Russia. They've lost a huge number of soldiers
Mm-hmm.
and a huge number of assets, and it's what you call a Pyrrhic
Victory.
Pyrrhic victory. Pyrrhic victory means you might win, but
At a
it
great
was
cost.
so like terrible that it was like it was not worth it. It's not worth it winning because so many people died. But this is what's happening now to Russia. They might win the war, but lose it also because all their assets and so many people dying and everything. So it was not really a good idea to go to war. Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's go to text 20. Well, okay. Okay. Our time is over. So, are there any questions you can ask? Yes. Okay. Repeat your question again slowly. Yes.
He's not immortal too either.
Yeah. Right.
It's like 1,000 years.
Well, because Rama is a jiva like you and me. He's not Krishna. So he's also subject, even though he's so powerful, he's still a subject to birth, death, old age, and disease. So that means he was not immortal. Well, the duration of his life looks like he's immortal, right? It's a very, very long time, but still he was subject to death. So he can't give something that he doesn't have himself. Let's put it like that. Yes.
So you said like the Lord like conducts everything in the world, like what happens.
Yes.
Like what about something like COVID? Like was there gain from that? Or like a reason why COVID happened?
Yeah, it's to kill a lot of people. See? So a lot of people died because of the COVID, the plan of the Lord, wars, and what do you call that?
Natural calamities.
All these natural calamities are planned by the Lord. Why? To eliminate uh, sinful people. Right. So, like in World War II, the Japanese were bombing Calcutta, and and you know, and the British caused an artificial famine in for that part of India where Calcutta is. Uh, the British were experts at producing artificial famines. They did it in Ireland also, and because of that, so many Irish people left Ireland and went to the United States, and many also died because the British created an artificial famine. That means that they, like in Ireland, they ate potatoes. They love potatoes. So, so what did the British do? They purchased an entire, uh, you know, entire crop of potatoes, and basically people were dying because they weren't getting their most popular food, and it was not only that, but they were not getting enough food, and so a lot of Irish people moved to the United States. That's why there's so many Irish people. Like even our friend, our president, is has his roots in Ireland. Huh? Biden, yeah. And then so that is a strategy to defeat people. You create an artificial famine, right? And that's what they're doing now. The Israelis are doing that to the uh, uh, to the Muslims. Yeah, they're creating an artificial famine by denying, resources to enter into Palestine. Or very few resources of food and medical, medicines and things like that. So that is a type of war strategy. You starve the people to death. You don't have to shoot them. You just starve them to death. It's horrible things, horrible way to die. Okay, so that answer your question?
Yeah.
Huh? Yes. Okay. Well, thank you very much. If there are no questions, then we'll say
I
yes.
also have one question.
Yes.
Actually, two questions. One is that there is so much like world history about Hitler and Nazis and Japan and whatnot. Like there are so many, too much of, and uh, many of these things are some of these things are taught in schools. Like in India, we didn't read too much about international history, world history, but something about Indian history. So, uh,
And most
how
most of that
important?
Indian history was about Muslims.
Yeah, yeah.
It wasn't
So,
really Indian history.
so how? My question is like how important it is to get to know about these world histories and how much detail we should be going into and encourage the kids also, whether we should be encouraging kids to read about history and how we can learn from the history.
Well,
uh
the best history is what we're doing now. We're reading Srimad Bhagavatam. That's the best history. Yeah. Because it's not nonsense. All this other history is nonsense. It's all about killing and lying and cheating. And, you don't really learn much by reading about Hitler. But if you learn about the Pandavas, then it's all, spiritual content. Right? So like, in your India, most of the history that you learn in school is about the Mughals. And then, this Mughal king and that Mughal king, and then they name different streets, and they have statues, of the Mughals that invaded India as if that's important, but it was horrible. Yeah, it's glorified.
Akbar to Shah Jahan to his son to Babur. How they descended and it goes from year to year.
We all remember that.
The great. Akbar the great.
Like Chandragupta or any of
Only
the
but 1926. I cannot say what is
17.
So, but I think your point is important, which is the real history, Srimad Bhagavatam. It teaches us not only anything that can ever happen, all human combinations of emotions and
Yeah.
greed, lust, anger, whatnot, how it all manifests. But then what Bhagavatam teaches us is, again, comes back to that unary concept, which is coming back to Krishna. Whereas in the modern history, you might spend, your entire lifetime and you will not get the point, which is, again, how to connect back to Krishna. That is the
Well,
problem.
because they're demons. They're not. Eisenhower was a demon, although he's a great military man, but he was a demon also. Having illicit sex and smoking, taking intoxicants, things like that. Although he's a great general, so-called great general, but not, it's not like the great generals in the Vedic time. It actually was a low-class guy.
All the fact, Maharaj, that modern history is not teaching at all that what to do, but Gita Bhagavatam is telling what to do exactly, in which situation, and what not to do as well.
Okay, give an example.
Like recently you were reading about Diti and that.
Yeah, okay.
Like there is a certain time for everything.
Yes.
So what not to do and what to do.
Yeah.
At what certain time it has to be.
Yeah,
conceived.
exactly.
This is one example, but
That's a good example. Very good.
it gives confidence in like what we
Yeah,
should
nobody knows that, there's certain times of the day that you should not engage in having sex to have a child. People have never heard that. They think, well, any time is okay. No, but there are times that are inauspicious. That's why, normally, previously, people would go to a pundit and they would say, what's the good time to do this? Like, and what is it called? That's the book.
Panchang.
Panchang. Yeah.
I grew up with this man. We had Panchang and everything we were following with that Panchang and with
Right.
the person who reads the horoscope very nicely.
Yeah.
So we were doing everything based upon instructions.
And most of the time they said, don't do it on Thursday. Especially between 3 o'clock in the afternoon and 6 o'clock.
Complex.
Yeah.
Complex.
Yeah. I had a friend of mine who was a
You would take it to the extreme.
he was a geographical what do you call it? Pundit. In other words, he would tell you what place you should live. To live. Be, like for me, it was to live in this particular longitude and latitude, right? And so he was an expert, right? So one day he called me up and said, today's a very bad day. And I said, well, why is it bad? He said, no, it's very bad, because he's a geographical pundit, right? He can tell you where you should live. So I said, okay, what are you going to do then? What should I do? He said, well, don't go out. Just stay where you are at home. Okay. I said, what are you going to do? Said, well, I'm going to go to this elementary school that I know. I said, oh, okay. So then some hours go by. And then he calls me up and says, "Everything going all right?" I said, "Yeah, everything's just fine here." How about you? I said, "Yeah, everything's okay." You know, and all of a sudden I hear somebody screaming, and then he says, "Oh my God!" He said, "I'm going to hang up and I'll talk to you later." And he hangs up real quick. So he was spending. In other words, he thought that if he could go into some kind of elementary school and stay there for that period that was really bad, he'd be safe, right? So some guy comes and gets him arrested for
Because
being.
he's occupying school property.
He called the police and he got arrested. So much for his, geographical.
Prediction.
And the other aspect was like you need to do that. It will be like a big
Yeah.
negative environment will get created around your people. People will make sure
They'll remind you. They'll remind you of that mistake.
make sure you will completely that you need that specific thing you didn't do.
Wow.
So it's like a unnecessarily like a pressure. Also.
Well, I mean, obviously, there's a reason why there's the correct time and incorrect time, to do things. And we're seeing that in the case of DT.
My example, more on Maharaj, the horoscope and these people they were recommending based upon the day and time and planets. If you miss to do it, then people will make sure that you
Yeah.
get some mistake.
Yeah.
Because you were not able to follow strictly that planet time or something.
When I was a kid, my great auntie, people would come to her to, they would drink some very strong coffee, and then, and so it had these residue of the coffee that would be, at the bottom of the cup. Then they'd ask her to read what it says. Right? And then she would say, "Well, you're going to go on a long trip." "Oh, really?" "Yes." "And you're going to meet someone." "Oh, really? Am I going to meet someone?" Like that. So they, because they thought that she was like some pundit, and she was in a sense. Uh, and she would read, and it's called fall, that she would read the destiny of a person by reading the remnants of the coffee. Right. This is a big thing, whenever they would always have this very strong coffee, Turkish coffee, and it's very strong. And then there would be a residue at the bottom of the cup. And then they would hand it to her to read, what's going to happen. It was very interesting. When I was a kid, I would see this, and everyone wanted her to read their cup of coffee, to know what's
Was
going
it like
on.
a fine?
I assume, yeah. And she would do it. And say, "Oh, you're going on a long trip, and you're going to meet someone, and it's going to be very, very, what do you call it? Very good for you," and things like that. And, people, it was like an entertainment.
Yeah.
After finishing the coffee, then they would give the cup to her, and she would look at it and say what was going to happen.
Probably more of a fortune cookie.
Yes, yeah.
Everybody wants to have a good feeling at the end of it.
Yeah. Well, one time, this man comes to Prabhupada and said, "Prabhupada, please look at my hand and tell me what's going to happen." He said, "I don't do that." He said, "No, Prabhupada, all people like you, great pundits, they do that. Come on, please tell me." He said, "No, I don't do that." So he pestered Prabhupada so much. He said, "Okay, give me your hand." So he takes the hand and looks at it, goes like this and like that. And he said, mm, mm. And the man said, "What is it, Prabhupada? What is it?" He said, "All I see is Birth, death, old age, and disease. Well, that's true, right? That's what life is birth, death, old age, and disease. So that was his, he was doing the palmistry like that. Haribo, Haribo.
Any other questions or comments?
Another big thing.
Oh, I used to do that.